Hi, welcome to episode 13 of the Ukulele Sessions. Something that I get asked quite often is who are my favourite ukulele players, and it's always hard to answer that, but I think certainly in the top three I would put Kimo Hussey, Sam Muir and Colin Tribe. I've been really lucky in that we've already had Sam Muir and Kimo Hussey on the Ukulele Sessions, so to complete that trio it's wonderful today to be able to present to you Colin Tribe. We've got a fantastic interview with Colin where we talk about all sorts of things. I think about Colin is probably the player that has influenced me the most. Certainly when I first started playing the ukulele, I was looking around for arrangements and I happened upon Collins and instantly I connected with them. I really gelled with them straight away. I got what he was doing. I mean, he's an incredibly good arranger. He's a brilliant player, but a really good arranger. So let me tell you a little bit about Colin. Colin's released numerous books. He's done quite a few in a series for, in a series for Shot that he's done. American folk tunes and English folk tunes, to name just but two. There are others as well. He's then done a couple of tutorial books. He's done the Musical Ukulele, and this book here, which I've done a review of this online. It's worth checking that out if you're interested. Discovering Fingerstyle Ukulele, really comprehensive book. If you are looking for a book to study with, this is an excellent, very thorough book. Now, as well as that, one of the things that Colin has done that I'm so grateful to him for, and has made him very influential in the world of ukulele. He maybe doesn't realise how influential, but is the VCM. So VCM is the Victoria College of Music, and they were one of the first to really embrace ukulele exams. The great thing about VCM is that they go up to diploma level, and Colin is in charge of all the syllabus and he does an awful lot of the examining as well, and he travels all over the world doing it. It's a fantastic syllabus, really worth checking out. So as I say, I think sort of Colin really influenced the way that I arrange things. He's a brilliant arranger, and he in this interview he says that he arranges something every single day. He's done absolutely thousands of arrangements. My two favourite, My Sweet Lord, George Harrison's version, so where Colin takes the lead, the rhythm, the vocal and merges them all into one beautiful thing. The other one that he did, which is just sublime, the fact that you can arrange it on a ukulele, was the concerto, the Rodriguez concerto, Aranjuez. Absolutely fantastic. Now, Collins, he's working on a lot of stuff at the moment, and he does Zoom teaching. Early on in my career, I had a couple of lessons with Colin, and he's a fantastic teacher, really good. So if you are looking for a teacher, I highly recommend Colin. He's one of those guys, he's such a lovely bloke. Again, I could chat to him all day. Really nice guy, very knowledgeable, has done so much for the ukulele world. I noticed someone on a forum the other day put, I'm looking to interview a great ukulele player. Who should I interview? And a couple of people suggested Colin, actually, which I think is great. So I quickly said to them, I will be doing that in a couple of weeks' time. So I hope you enjoy this interview. I can't say enough great things about Colin. If you're looking to get something arranged, or if you're looking for a lesson, do check Colin out. Make sure you check his books out. I use them, I play from them, I teach them, and I perform them as well. So I'm happy to present to you an interview with Colin Tribe. Hi, Colin. It is lovely to see you as always. Thank you very much for doing this. I'm really looking forward to our chat. I wonder if you could just start off, Colin, by telling us a little bit about your childhood and when you began playing the ukulele.
Well, the two are a long way apart because I've been a musician I guess all my life. Someone said that when I was very, very young, they saw me banging a spoon or something. They thought, oh, that's very musical. I didn't come from a musical background at all, except maybe my grandmother took me to, it was Derby and Joan clubs in those days. It was long before U3A. And I remember she was one who would sing and go on stage, and she'd get me to do that with her. So that was when, before I went to school, so sort of before 5 or 6. And at school, so I was the youngest of 4, and my brother Michael, who's 7 years older, he went to Oundle School on the last scholarship they did from Burton-on-Trent schools to there. And one of the influences from him was that he came home and they were doing a Bach B minor mass. And I remember seeing the music and being fascinated by that, because I'd started playing recorder when I was 8 with Miss Pass in junior school. And I loved that, and really loved that, and singing all the sort of folk songs that we did in those days in school. So that was my introduction to music, was really through doing the recorder, and I remember playing at Burton Town Hall and sort of being good when I was young and learning to read music through that. And then Lonnie Donegan came along and hit me like a steam train. And one of my father's friends knew him, because he came from Nottingham and we were in Burton-on-Trent, which isn't very far. I live now Newark-on-Trent, just a boat ride away, if you're lucky. And so skiffle was the thing, and I loved that. So my sister was learning to play the violin, and not very well. And they let me take it back to the school. This is a true story, where she was doing it from. Get the money back that they'd paid for it, and use that money to buy my first guitar.
Love it.
And before I had my own guitar, to show how sort of dedicated I was in an early age, I had a piece of balsa wood, which I'd drawn the frets across, and I'd learnt where to put my fingers for the chords before I had my first guitar. So I've always been hooked by shapes and things. I play chess, so I've got a kind of mind that can accept shapes, and numbers are quite good. So tab is second nature to me now. So that was me playing guitar by the time I was 10, 11. Tough instruments to play because they didn't cost very much, and had a friend who was a pianist whose big number was to play the Dam Busters March. And there's a great version of that by our guitarist, his name I can't remember, we'll come back later. So I haven't redone that one, but I remember playing along Busters March as he played. And the music at that time was simpler in many ways to join in with and think, yeah, I can hear that. And, you know, things like Banks of the Ohio and Davy Crockett theme and all these things. There's 3 chord tricks, and I had the ability to listen to a song and pick up the chords almost straight away.
Okay.
Everly Brothers, big fans of them, and Buddy Holly. So it was a nice introduction to music through friends. And also I had one cousin, Tony, who had polio, and they'd suggested that he learn to play trumpet. And his influence was that he introduced me to Louis Armstrong from 1927 period, which had Johnny Dodds on clarinet, and I loved that sound. And a guy called Johnny Sincere on guitar, and occasionally banjo. So I had that love of what we'd call trad jazz, but it wasn't really trad jazz, it was the original jazz of that time, and loved the tunes. And I had a bit of classical influence from my father, who would always play. I had a lunchtime concert, and when I came home from junior school, then that would always be on, so I'd listen to that. And he also had a great love of people like Kathleen Perrier, and so I had a love of the sort of English voice and the folk music that was in that, which we hadn't done at school, but was sort of halfway between classical and folk stuff. So when I did Blow the Wind Southerly in the English book, then I was sort of hearing her voice in my head. So as you can tell, it's a long way from ukulele. Nothing for the next 60 years was anything, or 50 years was anything to do with ukulele.
Right.
In school, of course, we had bands based on things like the Shadows or the Drifters, as they were first. And soon we had a band at school and loved that, doing all the Buddy Holly stuff. And then we had another trumpeter. This one's a guy named Dave Saville, who was in 2 years above me. And he started a trad band, and he was a very good player. He played in all these sort of brass band concerts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so I became their guitarist, and this is a band called the Mahogany Hall Stompers. None of us realised that Mahogany Hall actually was a brothel in New Orleans, but and we played gigs at St Albans Abbey, and nobody minded that. And we were quite good. We came second in a rock contest at Watford Town Hall. So we were all right. A bit of a novelty item, I guess, a bit like the Temperance Seven sort of thing, who had hits. But that was lovely. And also it meant that I developed good hands, because you were playing in E flat and A flat all the time.
Yes.
And I never used a capo. I was sort of not an anathema against them. I love seeing people use them. You can use one ukes rather than retune. But I didn't. So there I was, working out how to play all these tough chords, and also reading chord sheets, which were sort of the standard ones that people would play in bands, because we sort of didn't learn it by rote. We had actually the sheet music there, and then improvised on the top of it. So that was a very good sort of grounding in that kind of thing. Through that, I got
sort of uke appear then.
The uke didn't appear until a boat trip down to Boston in Lincolnshire. It would have been about 13 years ago.
Oh, wow, that recently?
Yes, I was a guitarist, and I was quite a well-known guitarist. We got on telly in one band that I was in, and we were good.
What was the band that was on TV?
They were called the Paratones. Strange name, but it's because three of the guys were paraplegics.
Right.
And met at Stoke Mandeville Hospital.
Wow.
When having physiotherapy. And they all played basketball and all had this interest in music. And the singer, Jimmy, was a great one. He was the first really good singer I worked with. And it was an interesting band, because we did all the gigs around Hemel and Aylesbury, where I lived then. And our bass player, Ron Griffiths, was one of the founder members of the Ivies, who then became Badfinger. And he left because he'd got a wife and daughter and didn't like the lifestyle.
Yeah.
I decided, when I left school, I got a job on the Isle of Wight playing guitar and double bass, actually, which they said, can you play double bass? I said, no. Well, there is one, they said. And we do this trio in the afternoon for the bingo session. And we don't want guitar, but we want double bass to play with a piano and drums. So I sellotape my fingers up and learned to play double bass in an afternoon. But having realised it was the bottom four strings of a guitar, made a bit of help on that.
Yeah.
So I played sort of semi-professionally with many bands, and it was a very good living actually. Weekends you'd play Friday night, Saturday, and twice on Sunday. A lunchtime one at a Catholic church in from where now, near Luton, and there were plans at one point that I'd go with a band to Germany, but that all fell through. And I had this big day when I had to decide, shall I go to teacher training college and do what I really wanted to do, which wasn't be a musician, but do primary school teaching, or join the Mecca Ballroom dance band in Hitchin. And I decided, no, I'd go to school. And I was married by then as well. When I was practicing with Mahogany Hall Stompers, Marika came to our rehearsals and stayed with me to rehearsals ever since.
Well, Mecca's lot was teaching's gain, I think. So
I love it. And the idea of being able to do teaching and do the music at the weekends was great for me. I really enjoyed it. But
Perfect.
gradually the music began taking over the teaching bit as well.
Well, I must admit, I've known you for a while now, Colin. I'm surprised to hear ukulele's only been 13 years. You've achieved an awful lot in 13 years, which brings me on to the next thing. I want to talk about your books. I have a collection of them here. Actually, I've got your latest one, which is the wonderful Discovering Fingerstyle Ukulele, and then I've got the shot ones as well here. So we've got American folk tunes and we've got English folk tunes as well, and I also have one of your earlier ones here, Musical Ukulele. So can you tell us how you went from 13 years ago picking up a ukulele to arranging for the ukulele? Because that's so 13 years ago, that's about 2 years after John King's book, isn't it? Classical Ukulele. That was 2004. So you're talking a little bit after that, aren't you?
Yeah, it was just before there was a big festival in London in 2009, and I'd been playing about a year and a half by then.
Okay, so what made you do the arranging? How did that come about?
Well, arranging and composing had been part of my life. Like the first thing I wrote for BMG when I was 17 was a thing called Skeleton Blues, blues in B flat, and I'd always had the idea of writing music, and I even had a songwriting contract which didn't go anywhere when I left school.
Wow.
But so I'd already done a lot of arranging for guitar. It was all to do really with VCM, because Victoria College of Music, who I now examine for and write syllabuses for, they had got in touch with me after I'd worked a bit for Trinity College. There's sort of these strange things that happened. A guy, John Stevens, came into school and saw my syllabus that I used for electronic keyboards. You know, I'd have a classroom, and I never wanted xylophones, and they're going to beat each other up with them. So I thought, yes, as soon as you go onto keyboards. So I wrote this syllabus for school, and that got taken on by Trinity. And VCM said, well, we want to go beyond grade 5 up to diploma. Can you help? So I started arranging stuff for electronic keyboard. Yeah. So it was all in my mind, the idea of arranging. And when I said, well, but really, I'm a guitarist. So they said, oh, we want to look at the guitar one. Da, da, da. So I now look after the guitar one, although I'm trying to get rid of it because I'm totally ukulele. I'm a ukuleholic, as I describe myself. Yeah. And when I got to this stage of having got a ukulele, and I was thinking about doing an exam called self-accompanied singing, which is the one I'm most proud of, really, because other boards hadn't done it. They hadn't done ukulele either before I started doing it. But there was a guy down in Taunton who's called Nipper, Tim Lewis, and he wrote a book called The School Ukulele Orchestra. Right. Several years ago. You might not have seen that.
No, I'm not aware of that one.
It's published by Mayhew's, though.
Is it really? Oh, my word. The shame of it. I should know it then.
By your public.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll look at that.
By coincidence, my son lived down near Taunton, a place called North Petherton. And when I was staying down there, I said, well, there's the Taunton Ukulele Strummers Club, Tusk, and that was the first they call themselves the first wooden ukulele club in the country. So all the other ukulele clubs really spawned from Tim Lewis's idea of popularizing the ukulele. Yeah. And their books were the first ones that you could get on the net. So you get all these songs and the chords for everything that a lot of groups use, and everybody does their own one now. But they were the first and very solid. They were good and accurate. And I talked to Tim about this self-accompanied singing exam from the point of view of how you'd fit the ukulele into it, without realizing really that's what most ukulele players do. I mean, I've got into this thing that I do arranging, but it all started by the idea of thinking, now let's make the accompaniments more interesting by putting some melody in. And I used to go to Ukulele Wednesdays. That was at one time, it was only on one pub next to Foyles in Charing Cross Road. And they were the instigators of the London Ukulele Festival as well, the people who were there. And I'd do this journey, I'd travel up there, sing the songs with them, and come home with all these songs in my head on the train. And ukulele is so small, and you can sit there sort of behind it. And I started doing arranging while I was on the train.
So
a bit like
Colin, sorry to interrupt. When you say adding melody, do you mean for one ukulele or do you mean for two?
No, just for one. So can I do the train?
Yeah,
so one of the first songs I did was with Locomotion. La, 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 la. Now, this is in C with an A minor. All I'm doing is on the top string. Then you can actually play that by using the high G, which is what I normally use. And okay, so you get some difficult parts where you're reaching up to that. I used to do all these on soprano. By this time, I had jettisoned the Boston uke. I'd got a lovely green Mahalo with a dolphin tail on it. Dolphin, which I still have. It's in my car. It has some what do you call it? Gorilla glue I put in it, which looks like a tub of Coca-Cola has spilt and built up this thing, but it does hold it together. But I got another one just in case it does die. And then I went to a shop in Charing Cross Road, Macari's. So I was an Ivan Morantz man. Do you know Ivan Morantz?
No.
Oh, he had a lovely music centre. He was one of the big arrangers of music from the 40s and 30s, a great player. And he had a wonderful shop, which has since closed.
Right.
And they didn't really do ukuleles. They were a guitar shop, both classical and But Macari's had this wall full of ukes, and I went down and I found one that was a soprano, and I really loved it. Carvalho, it was called, Portuguese make, and I thought that was right because Portuguese really invented the ukulele, no matter what the Hawaiians say. But it was there, and well, they developed it, but it was from Portuguese roots. So I had this lovely Carvalho, which was never quite in tune, and on that I would really enjoy making these new sounds and doing early things I did. Was Locomotion was very early, Alleluia, and just learning that you can do. I got fed up of. I went to the Balham Ukulele Club. Which I've been to lots of different ones all around the place, and when they do Alleluia, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I thought when they announced it, I'll show them how to do this lovely 6/8 picking.
It suits it perfectly.
And then they did it in 4/4, so I just shut up because I know that I can be a bit of a pain. I'd always say, why don't you play the chord? No, I don't say why don't you. I say, you could play the chord this way, or if you just did this, it would add a little bit to it. Yeah. So my whole idea of getting into arranging was so that I could play the things for myself and not worry about what anybody else was doing, because I was going to get the melody playing, have the harmony through the chords. And chords are a big thing for the ukulele. You've only got 4 strings, so most of the time you can control the whole lot. I've done this series at the moment, still working on it. I've got 7 more to do. This is my lockdown sanity clause.
Yeah.
It's called the Daily Ukulele Workout, and this is going out to 87 people every day. Okay. And I've kept up. I'm about a week ahead of myself, because with Nadia here next week, I'm not going to get so much time to do it. And this morning I was recording some bits from The Arrival of the Queen of Sheba by Handel, which has got a lovely oboe part. So the thirds in that made one lesson, but it starts with wonderful arpeggios. And on the high uke, you can do. But But one of my reasons for using that shape, is that I could, if I want to, make the whole chord in it and do the first thing as a whole chord. So it immediately gives you the option if you want to. And the other thing is, if you make a mistake, you're only going to hit a note which is okay.
Yeah.
So it has lots of benefits. So I try and do arrangements where I've got the chords there and play around with getting the melody. And I love rhythmic things. I've just been working on an Everly Brothers song, Problems, which my son didn't. Problems, ding, 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 ding. I love things like that for the uke because suddenly it's in its element. It's doing what it does best, playing strong rhythms. And then you pick out a bit of the melody and then you put the chords back in. Then it's sort of, there's a bit of trickery, really. It's oral trickery. The brain is thinking it's hearing things which aren't necessarily there, but it's got a memory fills
in the gaps, doesn't it? It's interesting because I think when you play lead and rhythm, which I agree the uke is well suited to, it's important that people understand you don't need to play every note of the melody. You need to keep the rhythm going, but the melody, the brain will fill in the gaps. And I think you're right, because with the uke, because technically speaking, if you're playing a chord, the melody's in there somewhere. And with the uke, of course, if you're playing an F, for example, on a uke, you can get all the way up to, a D and E quite easy. Not so easy on a guitar. So I think that's another reason it's very suited to picking the melody out. So just going back to your arranging a little bit, you arrange an awful lot of pieces and a wide range, classical, pop, blues, jazz, everything. Something that fascinates me, Colin, do you have the sheet music in front of you when you do it, or do you do it all by ear, or is it both ways that you do it?
It's both ways, and there are, I have a system set up that can convert PDFs into Sibelius, called Photoscore. And so if I can get hold of a PDF of something, and there are a few places I'm very practiced at the art of finding music on the net. It's something I've really developed. So it's useful to have the music. One of the problems about written down music is that it's just like a map. It's not the actual road.
Yeah.
So it's not what happens when you listen to something, and you have to play around a lot with it. For a start, it'll have errors in it, wrong chords, wrong notes occasionally. And the timings, well, there's a sort of an agreement amongst musicians that, the timing doesn't have to be what's written. We all know what's actually happening.
Yeah.
Take dotted notes, for instance. How long does a dot last? Is it 3/4 of a note, or is it 2/3 of a note? Or is it somewhere in between? Sibelius actually allows you to have a shuffle or a boogie-woogie style, and they're all slightly different. But it's, something else I work from is MIDI files. They were very popular. And when I was in my teaching, I'd done this stuff in junior schools and middle schools. Then I did a music course. Well, it was performing arts. It wasn't music. The music element was actually guitar. And the lady after the first session said, "Well, could you take this for me, Colin?" So I did. So, sad in some ways, but good in others. And that also, you had to compose for that. So that was a nice. And one of the things I did was a musical called Chess Pieces.
Right.
Not the same kind of thing as chess, but mine was actually a chess game which kids dance to. And there's one piece I've used in grade A of Victoria College, which is the Pawns Dance. I've forgotten what it's called now. The Dancing Pawns, da 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 da, because they went backwards and forwards, just doing the dozy do, because that's how, and they take diagonally, and it was exactly like. Yes, so
picking up on that, Colin. So, because you compose pieces for the exams as well, and something I wanted to ask you: when you compose a piece, do you have in mind, okay, this is grade 5, it's got to be this hard, or do you reverse engineer it and sort of, you might compose a piece and say, well, this feels about grade 8? What way do you work there for VCM?
I'm lucky that I've got a large stack of arrangements to choose from, and some of those have slotted in, especially for the higher grades. You know, you do something like the Paganini variations, or and that can be, you know, you think, well, this is really tough. It's bound to be a diploma piece, especially if you do one of the things that I like to do, which says, well, at this point, the candidate has to have written their own variation as well.
Yeah.
Some of the other boards don't, but I like doing that composition element. And I've been thinking about this since I knew you were going to be asking me this. I don't think that grading is a science. It is more of an art. It's just like examining itself. And you could examine somebody playing one piece who's doing it for grade 3, and they'd get one result. But if they were doing it for grade 5, you'd be listening to slightly different things.
Yeah.
So it's, and I'm sure if I was doing with Trinity, it would be different. They would have a much stricter setup and saying, but you look at any piece of music and it can be dead easy all the way through, except there's one bar where suddenly you have to do something which is new and unusual. And in my work, that's what I've been trying to hone in on, is these little elements which make life difficult. And you just have to practice them a bit more. But they can be at a particular grade if nothing else is particularly wrong. So I've sort of shied away from saying, yeah, if you're going up to the 7th fret, well, then you must be at grade 3.
That's a really interesting point, actually, because I think Cavatina on guitar is one of them, isn't it? There's about 8 really hard bars which make it grade 8. The rest of it isn't. And I think we all fall into that trap that something has to be difficult to perform it. And, you know, but you can see someone as yourself play something simple and make it beautiful. And, you know, that's part of the thing, isn't it? And I love that, the fact that you say, yeah, it's one person could play, you could play the 2 same pieces and one person would play it and you'd look at it from a grade 8 level and someone else would, you know, because they're adding flourishes and things like that. That's interesting. One of your favourite arrangements of mine that since I learnt it, I wouldn't be surprised if I played it every day, Colin. And that's My Sweet Lord by George Harrison. It was always one of my favourite songs. And I then happened upon you playing it on YouTube. And what I love about it, you know, the beginning bit, I think it's Peter Frampton. It's that, I'm guessing it's slide guitar, that the bit. Yeah. You incorporated that very cleverly into it. If people haven't listened to this, Google Colin playing this. It's incredible. You then get that hypnotic rhythm. I can't remember what it is. Is it CG minor, something like that? It's a very hypnotic song. It draws you in. And then you get the melody as well. So you've got the lead, you've got the rhythm, and you've got the melody. How long did it take you to arrange that? Did you sit down and do it in one? Did you work out the lead and think, oh, that's great, I've got to do the rest? How did that come about, Colin?
Well, it's not actually my favourite of the George Harrison ones. I think the one I play most is Something. Yeah. Because it's so wonderful. And also I had this inspector coming and he said, can you play something on that thing? Sort of disparagingly. So I did. Yeah, I mean, there was this idea of the written version of this, of course, isn't accurate if you go to the books. Yeah. So there was a lot of listening involved to that. Playing along with it. One of the reasons why I would like to do things in original keys, if I can, if it works on the uke at all, is so that people can then take it away and play along just like I did when I was learning it. It was before the days of Alexa, when I could just go downstairs in the morning and say, Alexa, play, da, da, da. Yeah. You know, you had to search for it, but it was there. And there's some nice triplets in it. And one of my favorite things in it was those diminished chords descending, down, 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 which are just beautiful, and they do lend themselves to the uke. I mean, George was, in my opinion, the better of the Georges who played ukulele, and that one, and also, of course, Here Comes the Sun. It's wonderful, but do it in A, not in G, like most people and most books do. He plays it in A, and it's wonderful in A. Yeah. The opening is slightly more difficult, but actually you can get more notes in it. So there's a lot of listening to it. Then you write it down and you play it. And as I'm recording something, I'll sometimes change it just to make it slightly more ukulele friendly.
Yeah.
There's always this dilemma I have on almost every arrangement. Am I going to stick to what was on the original, no matter how many fingers you'd need or how many extra strings, or am I going to make it playable for ukulele? And I'm getting slightly more gentle in my approach. I will make it more ukulele friendly rather than think, yeah, I've got to stick to the original.
So how do you feel? Because I was going to ask you about key changes, because there's something, in a way, it almost feels sacrilegious to change the key of something to suit it to your own needs. I think with pop music, you're right, because often the music, it may be a case that the composer didn't actually score the music out. Somebody has sat in an office, done it. With classical music, of course, you know, Bach, we have the originals that his wife did, etc. So did it take you long to get your head around changing keys? And how do you feel your arranging has changed? Because you were sort of alluding to something there, that you're more happy to make it perhaps easier on the uke.
Yeah, well, there are several elements in this. I mean, the ukulele, with the tuning I use, has got a bottom note of C, which makes it very useful for playing in the key of F, because the C is the dominant, and often the song will go down to the dominant. So often that is one of the keys that work best. But as soon as you put something in F, then you're going to have B flats, and B flats have lots of problems for many players. But they are overcomable, and you can get away with playing a B flat 6 and having it open. But this is a bit technical, so I don't want to be too technical. But I love doing, say I'm doing a piece from the 30s or 40s, which was written with a horn section involved, you know, Duke Ellington or Count Basie. These sort of things, they wouldn't be in C's normally. They certainly wouldn't be in E's, A's and D's, which guitar groups like so much. And there I will do them in the original key, partly just because of the puzzle of doing them, not to make them more difficult, but what I do then is I will do versions in different keys. So take a song like 8 Days a Week, which has got a lovely riff beginning, great chordal stuff, really goes very well. But you can play it in C, in D, and in G, and they're all very, very effective. And if I'm doing something which is a simple melody, I will often change key for the next verse, because, you know, if I'm not doing the lyrics, then I've got to do something to make it different. One of the things in the arranging I'll do is change the style of arranging. So sometimes you're playing arpeggios, sometimes you're doing stop chords, anything like that. But you can also change the key, and that can be very effective with folk songs especially. And of course, lots of pop songs do it. And you get superb songs like La Mer, which does the same thing in 3 different keys. Oh, so does John Lennon's Happy Christmas, War is Over, which is a working of Stew Ball, which is in one of my folk song books. Stew Ball was a racehorse, da 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 da.
Okay.
But Lennon just did it in 3 different keys, and brilliant it is too.
Yeah.
You know, I don't go for this saying, "Oh, it's been done before, therefore he's stolen it." No, it's not like that. It's like it's brilliant.
It's very interesting that you sometimes put things in 3 keys, because I tend to, I try and find just the key that works, but then again, I'm not as good as you, so it's interesting to hear how different people work. When it comes to, you know, the ukulele is pretty, it's a quiet instrument. It can be difficult if you're replicating, you know, Bach, whether you're replicating a Bach piano piece or a Bach guitar piece, you know, it's going to expand over 4 octaves. I'm wondering if you get round that to add depth to pieces on the ukulele. Do you try and add chords where there would have been low bass notes, or how do you work with adding depth to your arrangements?
Well, I think the best example of that is to compare my version of Jesu, Joy of Man's Desiring with John King's one.
Right.
John King is quite a complex arrangement. He's done it in F, because that in some ways is the best key to do it in. I've stuck to the original in G, and I use a lot more chords. I don't do the campanella style where you're sort of letting notes ring on and build up the harmony like that. So it is a different style, and I realised quite early on that that was what I felt gave that depth, was to play more chords within the arrangement. And the other thing is another oral trick. If I'm playing something in, say, G or C, say it's in the key of C, but you've got a chord of G and you want the leading note, which is the B, and you're doing it in C, what you get is... now, when I do that, that is my B.
Yeah.
Right. But I harmonise it with you. And the brain sort of takes the fact that you know there's a beat there, and it's in the wrong octave, but it works.
Yeah.
So that is a trick you can use.
Because descending lines are sometimes quite difficult on a ukulele, because descending lines sound beautiful on a ukulele, but before you know it, you've run out of notes. So yeah, I totally get what you mean there.
Yeah, so fine, and yes, so bass lines can be played very high up.
Yeah,
that's true. There's been in something that does that, where you go da 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 da, which would can't play it down like that. So you find ways, but there are not. Yes, but then you put those notes into the chord. They're harmonised. You think what how an organist works, and the organ, you're going to hear a note which is being played in 3 octaves at the same time.
Yeah.
Because of the pipe working stops you're using. So the ear is easily fooled and pleased as well. So you're not doing it, out of malice. It's because it actually works and it makes the thing possible. Yeah, it's a constant. And nowadays, I will arrange things going up to 17th fret. Now, of course, this isn't for everybody. So what I do, and there were some good examples of that in my book, Discovering Fingerstyle Ukulele, where I put an ossia line in, which is the Italian for alternative.
Yeah, alternative line.
And so you show a different way of doing it, because I can't expect everybody else to follow what I know. And of course, arranging changes over the years, because I've done well over 2,000 arrangements of pieces of music now. I mean, I do. Well, I was just looking before we started. I do, and even down this time. Well, this time it's not. I have more time really, but I do at least one a day.
That's absolutely incredible. I guess it's a bit like songwriting. It becomes addictive in a way, doesn't it? And there's always the challenge of a piece that you hear.
Yeah, and I hear something like the problems. The Everly Brothers one was just because I heard someone on the news saying we have so many problems, and it was the way he said. It just reminded me of that. So I'll see a show, and there'll be a song in it. I think, yeah, I must do that. Have I done that? So I'll check and see, because sometimes I've spent an afternoon and I've rearranged something which I did sort of 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I have these lovely people all over the world who will say, "Will you arrange this for me?"
Of course, yeah. And
that can be really fascinating, because there's a guy in Singapore who, at the moment, he's asking for arrangements almost 2 a week.
Wow.
And then they're not remarkably cheap, but they're not that expensive if that's the music you want to do. But he will send me, and it's a Chinese or Taiwanese folk song that's been used in a film.
Wow.
So there's no written music. So I have to just listen back to the original.
Oh, that's that's good.
It's great fun, beautifully time consuming if that's the way you want to spend your day. But fortunately, it is. I mean, I love nothing more in the morning than getting up and thinking, "Oh yeah, I'll do that." Like I've had a whole run of sort of big rock songs from the 60s and 70s. So on my to-do record list is "Sunshine of Your Love" and "White Room," and they're both great rhythmic pieces. If you think of White Room, you've got that Ginger Baker put a 5/4 introduction, dun da 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 dun dun da da dun da da da, and it's wonderful to play on the uke. It works. Not easy, but it's there. And lots of these good rock pieces sound superb on the uke.
Fantastic. We don't have much time left, Colin, but there's a couple of things that I'm really keen to talk about. And one is VCM. You've done some great work with VCM, Victoria College of Music. I really, I'm a firm believer in their work, your work, and the fact that they've really pushed the boundaries of the ukulele. I sincerely believe they have, and they continue. What does the future hold for VCM? Anything exciting that you can tell us that they're up to? Because they kind of they were, shifted the ground a bit with ukulele. So what's their future hold?
Well, we've just had a tie-in with the Ukulele Society of Great Britain, who are sort of looking very forward in the way they want to push it as an exam subject in schools in music. But as with all these things, you never know where that's going to lead.
Yeah.
But we've got sort of mission statements and things like that. Fortunately, I don't get involved in that side. I was just a link. And when we actually get through all this, and I was down to do a workshop at their last federation meeting, and I'll do one in the next one, a place called Digswell in Hertfordshire. And they're a lovely organisation, and they got Andy Eastwood as their president. So they're no slouches. They're very well run. And another guy who I really adore, Zip Payne. I don't know if you know. I've seen any of his stuff.
I know his nephew as well, actually, strangely enough. So his niece. So, yeah.
I go to there, and you get this wonderful thing that there is it, and he's brought along his zither.
Yeah.
No, sorry, sitar, which he strings around his neck, plus a ukulele. So he'll go from sitar to you, and it's wonderful. I mean, that's one of yes. Just to carry on a bit more about VCM and ukulele, is that the one thing I'm able to do, and this is partly because of people like you, is that I can extend the repertoire by people bringing out new stuff. And we have some very nice exam centres, again in Singapore by chance, for mass harpists. And it'd be lovely to have the ensemble playing sort of seriously done for ukulele as well. Yeah. And I already do arrangements for groups like there's the Ukulele Society in Vienna. They play some of my things, like obvious ones that they do, like the theme from The Third Man, because that was set in Vienna, and a piece based on Vltava by Smetana.
Right.
And they will sort of order and commission arrangements of ensemble pieces. And I'd like to see those building up and maybe bring out at some stage a book of graded ensemble pieces. It's quite a strange area because you haven't said not everybody has to be at the same level.
Yeah.
So the grading of it, that I'll let somebody else work out how they want to do that.
Because you did.
So that would be one other.
On that in this, didn't you? Actually, there's a couple of ensemble pieces in.
There are, and I tell you that I haven't used that so much for teaching from until lately with my grandson. And he's got a stepbrother to be when Tanya and Jason can get married, who plays violin, and those pieces are really working brilliantly because I did it specifically, and the lady who did that used to be in charge of the school's music association, Carol Lindsay.
Yeah,
and she was an important sort of element in my directions because she saw me doing the VCM stuff. And said, could you do a teacher's book for schools on ukulele, a serious one? Well, I said, no, if it's going to be done, I'm going to do a serious one, treating it like a standard musical instrument. I don't think of the ukulele as being in a bubble all of its own. It is just another hence my T-shirt,
yes.
Without ukulele, it says without music. And I always have this in mind that you're doing music through it. It's just the instrument you happen to be holding at the time. And through her, then Shots saw me and said, would they like to do that?
Okay.
So it was a nice sort of cross things. And the other thing that's been great, of course, is the internet. So somebody in Taiwan sees me and says, would you like to play our ukuleles? Well, I'll already, Ken Middleton.
Yes, yes, I know Ken.
Well, he heard me play my Carvalho. He says, that really doesn't sound very good, Colin. And I agree, because it didn't stay in tune and things. And he sent me an Ohana because he was in charge of all the Ohanas. And I played that for a while. It was lovely. But then Sylvia Leho saw me, and I haven't had to do anything about getting a ukulele. I just wait for another box from China. And it's wonderful.
Yeah.
All
I
through
play
the
Leos because I said, you know, there was two reasons that I play these. You played them, and I said, if it's good enough for Colin, it's good enough for me. And then I saw Kimo Hussey play one as well, and I thought, if these two guys are playing, I'm sold. And they are wonderful ukuleles. Now, we've just got time for my last question, and this is quite a. I mean, thank you so much for talking about arranging so much. It's fascinating for me to hear. From a personal point of view, you've influenced my arranging a lot. You really have, and I'm very grateful for that. It's been wonderful talking to you. I wanted to ask you, Colin, and I ask everyone this. I'm looking forward to this. I'm going to throw an extra bit in as well. If you could go on a car trip, you can go anywhere. Who would you go with, past or present? Where would you go? What would be on your stereo? And I'm going to add this in. What car would you be in?
Okay, well, I'm going actually back to a real journey. So I've actually done this journey, but I would redo it. And this might be a cop-out, but this would be with Marika.
Beautiful.
And I'd be with the kids in the car as well. So we wouldn't be just with her. And we'd be going over the roads down to the Florida Keys so that we'd end up sitting on the dock of the bay in the Florida Keys, playing guitar with Tanya singing. My daughter's a wonderful singer, and Rob playing. And we could do it now. We could take the whole family because Rob's daughter Megan is turning into an ace guitarist. And I'd have Edward there as well, strumming 8 to the bar or more. And on the stereo, we might have been listening to people like Bob Dylan and Chris Christopherson. If they gave me a choice, it'd probably be Willie Nelson, going back to someone who can sort of ignore the timing of a song totally. Nobody did it like Willie Nelson, even Frank Sinatra. You know, he would be in a different bar and it just wouldn't matter because it's the musical message that matters. So that would be my choice. That was my favourite journey of all, ending up in the sunset on
That's beautiful.
Key West.
Really beautiful. And I think for your car, you're going to need a bus for all their musical instruments and all their people.
We might go on a Greyhound, but I'm not sure that they do that trip.
Yeah, that's true. Right, that has been fantastic, Colin. I'm just going to stop recording and then we'll have a chat. Thank you so much. Let me see if I can just